And good evening and welcome to the January 19th meeting of the Murfreesboro City School Board. We're glad to have those of you that are with us in our audience, and we're glad to have those that are watching from home. During our moment of silence tonight, we want to remember the families of two students from Murfreesboro City Schools and a social worker who recently passed away. Tristan Duncan, who was a first grader at Mitchell Nielsen Primary, Stephanie Potmeyer, who was a second grader at Salem Elementary, and also Miss Kiana Reed, a social worker. I want to remember them in our moment of silence, but now I'll ask you to please stand as Roseanne Barton will lead us in our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now our moment of silence. Thank you. And let me just take a minute to remind board members and anyone else who is speaking, if you make sure you remove your mask before you do so in order that the audio will be clear for our television audience. All right, do we have a motion? Well, I'm sorry. First, we have communications. Ms. Trail?
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Next week is Tennessee School Board Appreciation Week, and typically that would be our school board meeting, but we're going to celebrate you a little bit tonight as well as next week as well. So we do want to say that Governor Bill Lee has issued a proclamation honoring school boards. In that proclamation, he states the men and women of our local school boards are elected by the people to make decisions most appropriate for their communities and deserve recognition for countless hours of service to public education. So, Mr. Chair and members of our board, on behalf of Murfreesboro City Schools, we applaud you. Thank you for the numerous hours you give to our schools.
Thank you.
Next week, you will have all those wonderful books put around in your name, and you get. I know, Mr. Suttles, you need your books. So the schools will be recognizing you as well. But we did want to take this opportunity to do it publicly. So thank you once again. Our Teachers of the Year have just been announced at a couple of our schools, so they are actually not part of your packet because two of our schools just announced them this afternoon, and we didn't want to give away the surprise. So congratulations from overall to Melissa Horn and Lauren Moore. From Cason Lane, Rachel Matthews and Jacqueline Keller. From Scales, Kimberly Christopher and Tony Hartman. From Mitchell Nielsen, Lara Clementi and Bryce Reed. Black Fox, Becky Smith and Dion McCullough. John Pittard, Craig Nelius, and Carla Cavan. Hobgood, Kelsey Roan and Abby Thomas. Bradley, Allie Nivison and Taylor Witzeman. Discovery, Tiara Vance and Meredith Gilliland. Salem, Emily Cohn and Natalie Atcott. Reeves Rogers, Shay Miga and Sandra Daniel. Northfield is Nell Simpson and Sarah Easterly. And then Irma Siegel is Rachel Pepper and Mark Hill. So I'll send all these names to you tomorrow in an email so that you can send out congratulations, and we'll figure out how we're going to celebrate our teachers a little bit later on. And Lisa has it now included in your packet. So,
Mr. Chairman, I think we should give them a round of applause.
Thank you. Ms. Trail, before you proceed, I hate to interrupt you, but Mr. Settles has pointed out to me, we overlooked part, and we need to do this before we go any further. Board members, you have seen the agenda. I just need a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Goff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. Now, Ms. Trail, go. We're officially started.
I'm assuming you don't want me to say all that over again.
What was that?
I will just say that we have tremendous teachers in Murfreesboro City Schools, and I know for them to be honored by their peers is tremendous. So we will meet next week to actually figure out who our district teachers of the year are, and then they will keep on going up. So that's kind of how that process goes. Murfreesboro City Schools Community Outreach would like to thank Middle Tennessee Association of Realtors for their $2,000 donation to the Indigent Care Fund. That is truly helpful, and I know that Mr. Lyles and his team is very proud to have that. We'd also like to thank the following community partners for assisting families across the district during our season of sharing. They were Murfreesboro Police Department, North Boulevard Church of Christ, the youth group, as well as the Band of Brothers, Parks Realty, General Mills, and Yoplait Plants. We appreciate these partners, as well as our internal partners, the maintenance department, our school counselors and social workers, our outreach team, for really working together to make this a good season of sharing for our students. Also, we'd like to thank Pastor David Settles and the Worship Center Church for their donation of backpacks and school supplies for our students. Also, MCS Outreach has a big announcement. They will be partnering with Greenhouse Ministries in a new family resource center, and I know that resource center is much needed. So it'll be located at the Spring Valley Apartments complex. The center will consist of 2 indoor spaces, a computer room where students can work on homework and also get tutoring, and then a multi-purpose event room where they'll do cooking, music, those type classes with not only the children but also with the parents. This is going to be a great endeavor and a great partnership with Greenhouse Ministries, so we're really looking forward to this beginning. And the date that they have set so far is March 1st, so it's just around the corner. Also, according to the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth, Murfreesboro City Schools in Rutherford County ranked 8th best among the Tennessee counties in child well-being. Our strengths include high percentage of 3rd through 6th grade students demonstrating proficiency in TN-ready reading and math tests, and a low rate of substantiated cases of abuse and neglect. So that was some good news to receive from that state organization. Also, the Tennessee School Climate Survey will be distributed to parents and teachers in the next few weeks. You'll remember we did the same survey last year as well, right before we went out for COVID. So it's open from January 12th through March 12th. It'll be a couple of weeks before we actually roll it out. We use this survey to collect parent and teacher responses to help guide the Title I plans and the requirements that's through that Title I. It also replaced the Advanced Ed survey last year, and it also replaces the OVEAS anti-bullying. So it's one large survey that goes out to not only our parents but also our teachers, and that comes through Mr. Marlin. So those are my announcements, sir.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Appreciate it. Board members, I need a motion to approve the consent items.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Settles. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Goff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposition, and there is none. Thank you. All right, action items.
Yes, sir. First one is the proposed 2021-22 school calendar. We have worked on our calendar and several things. This is going to go through 2 readings. Tonight's our first reading, and then the next meeting we'll go with the second reading. For the last several years, we started school in July. This calendar, we will start school Monday, August the 2nd. So that's great. Our first half day for students will be Friday, August the 6th. As we had in our calendar for this school year, but we had to change it because to mirror the counties, we've put in 4 stockpile days for teacher in-service in next year's calendars. Those are Thursday, September the 16th, Friday, October the 29th, Friday, February the 18th, and Thursday, March the 10th. We stockpile 13 days each school year, and we're going to use 4 of those for teacher in-service. It's been a long time since we've used 13 stockpile days for snow, inclement weather, and I hope I can call one of those days before March.
Praying for snow.
And another goal is to get out of school before Memorial Day, and our last day is the Friday before Memorial Day, May 27th is the last half day for students. I ran this by the Murfreesboro Education Association and the principals, and both parties were good with this calendar. So we recommend approval and first reading of this calendar.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the calendar on first reading?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Have a second.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Richardson, now any questions?
I do.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Me?
Go ahead, you're right.
I just want to make sure, Ralph, and I know you said you talked to the county, but what I hear parents saying all the time, they want to see how we line up with the beginning of school, first day of school. They want to see fall break, and Christmas not as important, maybe last day of school. It seems like several have asked me about that. Are we pretty close to them on those?
The county has not approved their calendar year. They have not proposed it.
Okay.
And we hope they do before this comes back on second reading. But
Okay.
like you said, we've always started school a little 2 or 3 days before the
Yeah, I know.
county.
So I thought maybe it'd be closer.
Yes, so we hope to be closer to the county with this calendar.
Okay. Mr. Settles?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Ringstaff, her comment was very similar to mine, so I'm glad she made it, Roseanne made it, which is, and I get one of the main questions or inquiries I get from parents, especially dealing with this coronavirus that we've been dealing with, is how come y'all's calendar doesn't line up with the counties, and on and on. And I want to express our gratitude because, like you said, we had to go ahead and get ours out. We know that theirs has not been approved yet, but we do have to go ahead and start making steps, and we have room for adjustment as we need to. So I want everybody to know that we do our best to line it up as closely as we can, understanding that things come up, especially with some of the plans during this very, 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 very stressful and hopefully not to ever be repeated year. I don't want to see this, this COVID thing ever to have to deal with that, but we do our best to make sure that we line it up as close as we can. Am I getting that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposition? And there is none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Budget amendments?
Mr. Michael Smith?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have 2 budget amendments tonight. The reason they're not in the usual format where we normally have like a description is because these have to go to City Council and they require these in the format you see. So that's just why they look a little different than the ones with the description. The first budget amendment is dealing with line item transfers between 2 major categories. These transfers are to account for additional contracted services due to software that was just slightly under budgeted, and to move some money due to offset some additional pension expenses, which are very small. That's the first one. And then the second one is we got an additional $28,000 back for grant money from the first round of COVID, which is good. So we're just asking for authorization to spend that on health services line item.
Thank you. Okay, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, sir, Mr. Richardson?
You said there was an offset for I'm sorry, I'm supposed to take this off. You said there was an offset on the pension fund, is that what you said?
No, on pension expense. So we generally, that's calculated on a fixed ratio, and for whatever reason, this one was off by $514. So it's just really a cleanup to make sure we don't go over budget in that line item to account for that.
Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Ms. Moore?
Thank you. So can you say a bit about how you chose to take it from, I realize it's not a large sum of money, but moving a little bit from.
Yeah, I can touch on both of those, yeah.
From text.
So on the first one, let me just touch on the one where we're moving for other contracted services. We're moving $10,000 from textbooks into other contracted services. And if you remember either 1 or 2 board meetings ago where we moved some money from textbooks as well, we were able to use some curriculum, buy some curriculum through the first CARES Act money, so we had some leftover money budgeted there, which is why we're using that there. And then the second one is going to relate to safe schools, and we just had some leftover money in equipment line item. That $1,214 we're taking out of there and moving a portion to pension expense to clean that up and to clean up other contracted services.
Right. So it's not a cut from anything, it's just that we came under budget on those 2 lines.
Yes, we came in well under budget on textbooks, which allowed us to cover the software side for the Skyward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the budget amendments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Sellers. We have a second.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Mr. Smith, is this your last time with us?
This will be, yes, this is the last time with you all.
Well, we hate to see you go. We're glad to have had you for the short time. You've done a good job, and best of luck to you. You're going to Wilson County, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, good luck there, and thank you for your service with our system. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, reports and information, enrollment.
Yes, sir, it's Mr. Joe Marlin.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I have on your PTR form, your report that we do each month, I've added a couple of sheets, so you have 4 sheets this time. The first one is the PTR for the 2021 reporting period 4. That gives us our pupil-teacher ratio numbers. And if you'll look at the bottom of the page, you can see that all of our ratios are in line with our regular procedures. So those numbers have not changed very much. And we'll look at the enrollment part on the next page. If you'll turn to the enrollment for the 4th period, you'll see that we ended up at that count at 8,949 students. That's 2 more than we had the previous period. So the growth over last year is a negative 309. On that page also, you'll see that our average attendance percentage for that time period, that 20-day time period, was 93.4%, which was somewhat lower, probably because of Thanksgiving and the COVID changeovers that took place during that time period. I've added 2 pages related to conversations you requests that you made in the past. One of those was for accountability issues. The first page is not accountability as such, but it talks about truancy. And so I've given you numbers there to give you an idea of where we are as far as number of students that are truant at this time. It's something that we're looking at this year. I want to give you a caveat about these particular numbers. This year is unusual. Everybody knows that part. But it's unusual in that we have lots of transitions, students transitioning in and out, even some that transition during time periods other than those where parents sign up in advance. So in other words, the student's doing poorly on remote learning, the principal encourages them to come back to school. And so, but because of that, we've had some numbers that we've had to look at. So these numbers are probably inflated, but you can see at the end of the 4th period, we have about 206 students who are fit in that number of days of truancy. That's 10 days of unexcused absences. That's a high number, and we're looking at that and working with principals now. We first want to make sure that those students, that all the reporting is accurate, and with the back and forth from face-to-face instruction and virtual instruction, we just have to check those numbers and make sure that that's reported correctly. It's really hard when you have students who are at home, and the only way that that they don't show up at the door to be counted present. So sometimes we want to make sure that we're getting those numbers correct. And the last sheet is one of those issues, the chronic absenteeism, and that is one that fits into our accountability numbers when we're looking at accountability with the state, and that's why I included that. The definition of chronic absenteeism is the number of days that a student misses, whether that's excused absences or unexcused absences, so just total number of absences, whereas truancy deals with unexcused absences. So chronic absenteeism is a number that the state looks at. Last year were around 6, almost 7% at the end of the school year. About 7% of our kids were chronically absent. So to give you some ideas about that and to help us watch that internally and at school level, I started running this report to give us an idea. And what we're looked at, chronic absenteeism is missing 10% of the school year. So in order to do that, every 20-day period, we're looking at those students who've missed 2 or more days, whether they're excused or unexcused. And so this report gives you that number. It's a large number of students, about 1,494 students at the end of that 4th period. So during that 80-day period, we had that many students who have accumulated at least 2 days per month on average. And so that's a number we want to continue to watch. That works out to about 16%, what we imagine and we hope will happen. And we know by the nature of the way that we're counting this, it will decline each time because fewer students will accumulate that number each time. So the number should go down. You'll see as you look at some of those schools, you'll see that that's exactly what's happened. If you look at the bottom of your list at scales, the number declines each time, almost every time, or it's stayed close to the same in the last 2 periods. But it should decline because that number increases. So the next time we'll look at kids who have been absent 6 days. The next time, 8 days. And on, 8 days, we're at 8 days now, 10 days the next time, 12 days, and so on. So we want to watch that, and we want to make you aware, keep you aware of it because it is a number that's important. Our main reason for doing that is so that we're holding parents as team members in this and asking them to make sure that their students attend every day because every day matters, and that's something that we've been preaching for quite some time. But those are 2 new reports that I added to give you some idea, rather than just look at that percentage of students that are absent, to give you some idea about how attendance is actually working and how truancy, how we are regarding truancy.
Okay, Mr. Settles?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marlin, for the report. I have a couple of questions and I think we probably cover this every year, but I forget sometimes, and sometimes I just want to be reminded. There's 2 things. The first is some of our intervention methods when we see truancy beginning to happen or we see the chronic absenteeism. Can you just kind of, and you don't have to go in depth, but kind of give us a least intrusive to most intrusive, the process that we go through? I know we have one in place, and I know it's a good one, but I want to hear it again if you don't mind.
Sure, and I'll give you the quick version of it. At 5 days, we send parents a letter. At 5 days of unexcused absences, we send parents a letter and reminding them that they can turn in excuses up to that point. So that's our first step. We want to make sure that if they've just forgotten to turn in some excuses, they can do that. At that point, then we give them 5 days to do that. If they haven't done that in 5 days, we generally contact them and ask them to have a conference with us, the school does, and the school conferences, and then ask them to sign a contract. So at that point, we're looking to say, we're trying to provide assistance, how can we help? At the next level, next step up, we ask, if a student misses another day beyond that, so the 6th unexcused day, we'll generally send a letter, and we have a new letter that we've generated recently that talks about all the services that we have available and asks the parents, and it really gives them some ideas about if you're having problems with this, here's somebody in our school district that can help you. So we talk about everybody from school counselors to social workers to transportation. We talk about all those people who are there ready to help. And we ask them if they would need any assistance to contact the school counselor, and they could help set up those services, make sure those services are available. Beyond that point, we then do an assessment, and that assessment is we ask the parents some questions about things that are going on that might be issues. So we ask questions about everything from, is your child feeling bullied at school? They feel safe? Is there a problem with that? Is there a health problem? Are there transportation issues or family issues, to make sure if there's family issues? If the parents are unemployed or struggling with transportation or struggling with housing, we're trying to find out that information, which sort of relates back to that letter that we sent, but this helps us determine who else could we involve to help with the problem. We ask parents those questions, we ask teachers those questions, then a team in the building looks at those to see which services we might refer them to. Beyond that, if attendance continues to be an issue and we see more truancy, days of truancy, then at that point, that's when we turn them over to Ms. Taylor. Ms. Taylor's services. Now, we're working on a new resource that we hope to have ready this year. We're working with the Family Center, and we're developing an online class that parents can be involved in that helps them see other issues, other resources within the community, helps them understand to make sure they understand the importance of school attendance, and lets them makes clear that that there are consequences to continued issues with attendance. So we're working on that as another intervention to help parents understand and to make sure that they also see that they can reach out for help. In other words, we're offering lots of services, and we want to make sure that they have those available. But that's our attempt to say, here's one more try to make sure that you can utilize other resources in the community.
Thank you. The last part of my question would be with comparing quarter to quarter or period to period this year to last year, because my concern has to do with, I know we're doing at home as well as in person, so I'm guessing that our numbers probably don't look as favorable as they did last year with this. Am I correct?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, but maybe Elizabeth might know, since she knows how many that actually made it to juvenile court. And I can see her searching now, so.
And that's fine. I don't need it right now. It's just a question. You can, email her, all of us later when you kind of get those numbers. I'm interested to know the effects from what we've been through.
Right. And I think it does. We know that the numbers are higher this year because of that instability. Parents trying to decide which direction are they going to be in. Are they going to be virtual students? Are they going to be in-person students? Some struggling around those issues. So sure. We know that has an impact. One thing we've asked principals to do, and they've been really good about this year, is to provide, to show some grace to parents. Because, it's trying for parents to know exactly what to do. It's hard for them to make arrangements at times. And so we're trying to show that grace in this process.
So, and if I get that information, if we all get that information, not just to me, if you could also include subgroups in there.
Yes, sir.
I just want to kind of get a picture of what we're looking at. Thank you.
Mr. Ballard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Marlin. I want to make sure I'm understanding this chart on the chronic absenteeism. A period is how many days? So we've got 4 periods here, but how many?
They're 20-day periods. Every 20 days, this report comes forth.
So in the case of any of these in period 1, where you take Black Fox, we've got 166 that were plus 2 days in that 20-day period. So 166
students, 166 of their students
right.
missed at least 2 days.
Okay.
And so what we would expect to see is that number decline, because 2 days is not a big number, but 4 days is, and 6 is even bigger. And by the time we get to the end of the year, we really would, we expect to see this number decline. But right now it's kind of high, and so that's.
So is that 2 days over the truancy limit, or is that 2 days?
That's 2 days period.
Period.
The way chronic absenteeism is, the number that the state looks at is missing 10% or more of a school year. Mm-hmm. So when we break it down into those 20-day periods, that would be 2 days during that 20-day period. So that's 10% of that period. And so we're just trying to track these through.
Okay. And so then if I say that you said it, I think we're at 15% basically with this 1,494.
Yes, sir.
So we're about 17%.
16.7.
Okay. So have we benchmarked, or when we send out letters and we do brainstorming on what we can do for truancy, are we just recreating the wheel that is working somewhere else, or have we looked at benchmarking?
I think being a K through 6 district, we don't have a lot of the same problems that a lot of other districts do. We don't have kids who get to make that decision on whether they go to school or not, or who have transportation in order to not be at school and those sorts of things. So truancy is something that all of us have been working on for a long time. And there's been a lot of research done and a lot of projects and interventions tried. One of the things we know is that sometimes in the case of our students, it can be a family issue. So we're trying to. That's why we have social workers. That's why we have school counselors, is to help parents who might be struggling with some issues at home. We also have that staff to help support any children who might want to not be at school because they feel unsafe, or they feel bullied, or they have a problem with that. So all those things fit into that issue. The difference between chronic absenteeism and truancy is Truancy is unexcused days over a period of time. And chronic absenteeism is just trying to look at the issue of not being in class, whether it's excused or unexcused. And so that's why those two different sets of numbers, and they look a lot different. But chronic absenteeism is our state's effort, by holding us accountable and measuring that, is our state's effort to make sure that parents and schools work together to make sure that kids are in school as much as possible. So we look at a lot of issues there. Back to the truancy, that has more to do with a child not being at school and not having an excuse for that. And so that's where truancy makes the difference there.
These numbers are bigger than they were last year because we are offering distance learning. If they don't log on that day, they're counted absent. And sometimes they don't have support system at the house to encourage them to log on.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, now, Joe, okay,
Thank you, Joe.
Wes started out with Black Fox, and it said 2+ days, the first period, 166. Then it says 4+ days, period 2, 150. Now, is that 150 including?
It would have to, because those children had to miss 2 to miss 4. Now, it could be a different group of students, because some of those 166 at the beginning might not have missed any more days. So they would have fallen off that list, because at the second round, they would not have missed 4. But some kids added because they missed 4 during that second period. So it's a cumulative total across that page.
And our teachers and our principals are working really hard with these parents and those students to get them to log on, to get them to participate. And if they still refuse or don't do it, we have to get them back in school.
I see, okay.
In person.
All right. Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Marlin? Or if not, do we have a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. All in favor say aye. Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marlin.
Mr. Chair, these are reports. They really don't need to be approved.
Right.
Oh,
They're just,
okay.
they're facts.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Are you
Audit
saying
report?
you don't need us?
I need you to listen.
So we don't need to approve the audit report either.
Just
Correct.
leave it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, thank you, sir.
So this year, we got a clean audit opinion, an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion we can get on both our internal school funds and our central office funds or school board funds. Just to hit a couple of highlights before I take any questions, we did better than we expected. We had budgeted for a loss, and we ended up having a gain in fund balance. Our fund balance increased approximately $1.5 million, and we had projected a loss of about $2.9 million. So with everything considered COVID-related, I think that's very good. That's good, and I just want to say also, too, let's keep that in mind as we go forward and try to, we don't know how the rest of this year will go. But this ended as of June 30th, 2020, was positive. And then our ending unassigned fund balance for 2020 was $8,122,203, which is a positive sign. That's more than we budgeted. So with that said, any questions on the audit?
Ms. Moore?
How did we do that? How did we end up with a surplus when we thought we'd have a deficit? Was it CARES Act funding?
It's a combination of a lot of things. There's not one answer. It's going to be a combination of coming in under budget on maintenance because we weren't in school to do certain things. We didn't have field trips. A lot of that's going to contribute to that with CARES Act. I mean, that's going to contribute to that as well. But I would say looking for the page here, that's going to show you, actual to budget amounts. So I can give you a page number. It's going to be on page 25 if we're looking at the book that just says annual financial report that doesn't have internal school funds. And if you want to know specifically where we came in under or below, if you look on page 25 on the far right column, there's going to be something that says variance with final budget positive negative. You're going to see there's going to be some accounting moves in there, like capital outlay is going to look like we lost money, but that's an accounting. We had to move that for the report. However, you can see we came in under budget for maintenance and operation of plant, 600,000 and 700,000 right there are going to be our big savers. Is that going to answer what you were?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Like I said, it's not one specific thing. It's going to be a combination of multiple things that would go towards that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ballard?
Mr. Smith, I guess the main thing I'm interested in, is there anything that we are in danger of?
No, like I said, I think it's good news. I think it when you budget for a loss and you have an increase, I think that's good. However, I'll say to keep that in mind, because this past budget year was budgeted below the 3% state minimum, very right at it. So hopefully that trend continues, that we continue to save money, come in under, or over on revenues, under on expenses.
Mr. Settles?
Thank you. I've been wanting to ask, I'm sorry. I know you're going to Wilson County. You look like you're antsy, like you can't wait. Are you ready?
Oh, no.
Okay. I'm going to think of as many questions as I can to keep you here a long time. Since I've been getting these, which has been a long time, I've been here 4 years, going to my 5th, there's 2 questions I want to ask. Is there a, for lack of a better word, summary sheet that goes with this? I know it can't necessarily be a part of this, but you kind of gave us one. The second question I have is kind of like the first. If I called you guys up over here at Matlock Clemens and said, hey, this is David Settles, Vice Chairman of the Murfreesboro City School Board. Can you block out 4 hours of your day and let me come by, and I'm saying 4 hours because I know me, and let me come by and sit down with this instrument and you kind of walk me through it? Is that possible? Is that something that can happen, or do I have to pay for that? Or not me. I mean more like Ralph and Bill.
So to answer your first question, because it was a two-parter, there's a financial highlights page that talks about management's discussion and analysis that starts on page 10. So if you want a snapshot of some of the highlights, there's going to be some pie charts, some graphs, and there's going to kind of go through things. However, a lot of what's in this report is mandated by accounting standards. So that's to say is, one of these says the change in net position increased $8.2 million. That doesn't mean a lot to us when it comes to budgeting. So I just want to kind of explain that. There is a highlights page, but a lot of it's accounting, lingo that's required to be in there by state statute and accounting standards. That being said, it would be up to them. You'd have to ask them if they would charge to go meet with them. I know they're willing to come present this at the high level. But as far as sitting down, I mean, that's not in their contract or in their bid. So I think that would just be a question we'd have to ask.
Thank you.
If there's something in detail, though, like a question in here in detail, I would be happy to answer that, or even the finance staff would be happy to sit down with you.
And it may be that summary does it for me, because I'm not an accountant. Numbers kind of frighten me. I don't even know.
Well, and like I said, I'd be glad, or I'm sure anybody on the finance staff would be glad to sit with you. If that would help too.
That would work. I could just.
I'd be glad to sit with you for
4
or 5, however many hours you want to sit, and we can get in as detailed as you want, or as high level. But
Butch will buy us lunch.
Okay.
Any other, Ms. Goff?
3 quick questions. Have we received the amount that we're going to be receiving for the stimulus?
Yes, that's gonna, and I will talk about that in the revenue expenditure report. I can get into it now if you want, but we do have an amount we've received or been awarded. We haven't physically received the cash yet, but an amount we've been awarded.
Okay, and since you're leaving, could you explain how the city, Murfreesboro Electric, is going to affect their budget?
Yeah, if you want me to get it, can I save that until
Yes, exactly.
That's going to be on the financial highlights for that.
Yes.
Any other questions on the 2 audit reports?
Mr. Ballard?
Okay, while you're talking about revenue, are we going to be beneficiaries of the sports betting? Now, I see where the state's made $150 million already.
I want my slice.
That'll be up to the state. We'll have to see how the state legislature gives out that money. I don't know that that's finalized. Everything's finalized on that.
Got a lobby on it.
Well, they've got some of my money, so I want it back.
We will, if we're awarded any of that money or a pie of that, that'll be taken into account as far as the 2021 or 2022 budget cycle. None to this budget as of right now.
Thank you.
All right, revenue and expenditure report for November.
Okay, so I've put together, and I'll touch on a couple of your questions that you asked there. So first, and one of the very first lines is we can touch on the revenue we lost or are not receiving so far from the sale of the Mercer Electric Department. Us and the county school system are both not receiving our pilot money. And what pilot stands for is payment in lieu of taxes. And essentially what that is they're not going to pay regular property taxes like they're a governmental entity, so they pay a pilot tax. It goes directly to the state and then comes back to us. But since that sale was dated June 30th, we will not receive that this year nor going forward. That will be included now as part of county property taxes on the county's tax roll, since they're now owned by Middle Tennessee Electric Membership Corporation. So does that kind of answer?
But I was wondering how are we going to deal with that shortfall?
So we have a couple of options there. I think the city, I've been in contact with them, and the county have both kind of appealed that. They're trying to see if they can come up with an agreement between Middle Tennessee Electric and the county and the schools. That probably is not the most likely scenario as of now. So then our only other option is to cover it with other additional revenues or to cut expenses. My recommendation would be to kind of hold off on cutting expenditures and let's look and see how revenues go going forward. They seem to be coming in a little stronger than budgeted on some line items. But I think it's a little too early just to cut the $175,000 of expenditures off. Did that get, okay.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. Did you say it was roughly $2.9 million?
You talking about the pilot?
Yes.
No. So we budgeted $175,000 for the pilot agreements. The county had school system had a budget of about $900 or so to $1 million. Neither one of us will get that. So they've appealed that, trying to receive that money. So we would be out, $175,000, which, as of right now, hopefully we can make up with other revenue sources, whether it be CARES Act or sales taxes come in, county share property taxes, those types of things could make up that potentially.
So is it fair to say that the sale took money away from our school system?
Short term, yes. Long term, no. So what happens is now that they're owned by Middle Tennessee Electric, that's going to now come under the county property tax rate. And so that money would be shared with us through county shared property taxes, not through a pilot agreement.
Thank you very much.
So we would anticipate we would take this money off the budget, but we would increase kind of an offset in next budget year in county property tax revenue from the shared with the county.
Guaranteed?
Yes, because it has to be on their property tax roll. Middle Tennessee Electric assumed ownership of those buildings as part of the sale. So that's, and our split right now is about 85-15 with county shared revenues, and that's subject to change based on attendance.
Very well, thank you.
Mr. Suttles, you have another question?
I was wanting him to go back and chew that over just a little bit slower for me. I understand that we're not getting the pilot, but it sounds like we will get from the county tax. Am I getting that right? And our split is, did you say 80-20? Is that what I thought?
85-15 roughly.
85-15.
But that's our split for all county shared revenues based on attendance. It's called the 88 rate. So that's going to be the same for any money they spend on education, to their general purpose school fund.
Right.
So that, like I said, that is very subject to change. I know some ask about fair to say if somebody took money from our education system or not. It's hard to say. They could move pennies on their tax rate and we could get more. They could move pennies on their tax rate and we could get less.
So we don't know yet whether it's going to be a net gain or loss on our part. But we know that there will be some allocation from it, even though we don't own Middle Tennessee.
Correct. But it'll be next year next budget year before we can realize that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question?
And I can hit on a couple of other things. You'd asked before. You'd asked about we'd received approximately 5.5 and some change $1 million from the second round of CARES Act. 5.5, 5.6. Ralph, is that 5.5? Was that right?
Yes.
And so, we as a staff are, getting together and deciding, the best way to allocate those funds. And then I put a couple other highlights on here. I know y'all are always interested to see how COVID's affect our budget. So I've kind of hit some highlights there as far as some that we're already aware of as far as business tax, mixed drink tax, and things like that. I would like to add another way we could make up this money is we got a Tennessee Risk Management Trust conducted an audit, and that resulted in us getting $63,000 of unbudgeted revenue. So, those types of things can offset a budget shortfall. And that's why I say it may be a little early to just go through and say cut $175,000 out of expenditures, because, it's very likely that we can have additional revenue to make that up. And as you saw in last year's budget, we could come under expenditures. So did that get all of your?
You did.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Let me add, with the stimulus 2.0 money, we have from March 13th, 2020 to September the 30th, 2023 to spend that money on COVID-related expenses. So about 3 years.
I'm guessing we have,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm guessing we have a plan for it then, right?
We're gathering the plan. We have to have it submitted by March 1st.
Thank you, Ralph.
All right, personnel report.
Yes, sir. You have in front of you the personnel report. We had 3 certified individuals to resign or retire at winter break. That's pretty low for us for this winter break. And as you can see, if you have any questions, you can please ask them or give me a call, and we can go over this.
Any questions? All right, moving right along.
Okay, the next item is the summer school update. Our instruction department, along with the communications department, several weeks ago, they started planning for summer school. And last week, we learned that the state is also planning to have all school districts do a summer school. I kind of like their terminology. They like to call it summer camps instead of summer school. So we'll have to see what pans out this week with the legislative, what finalizes. They're talking, we were thinking about a 3-hour summer school from 8:30 to 11:30. Their thoughts are 4-hour. And they would pay for our summer school. So that's the good news. The bad news is we don't know yet how it's going to look. So far, we have 1,500 students who would be interested in attending our summer school camp. We would like to hold it at all schools and have the teachers at those schools teach those students at that school. And we would like to offer bus transportation. And we're working with the ESP to offer a good discounted rate for those individuals who do attend summer school, but have a little summer camp right after summer school, and provide breakfast and lunch to all the students during the month of June. So, and we like to have the class sizes about 10 to 12 students, and we hope to have the finalization of the plan and sign-ups around March.
Okay. Mr. Settles?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is already in the budget.
No, sir. If the state does not pay for it, and they will.
That's there. I may have been asleep
And
during that part.
if they don't, we had planned to use stimulus 2.0 money
Okay.
for this. To pay
Because
for
that
teachers
kind of falls in that category of
and COVID-related. Yes,
COVID recovery.
yes,
Okay. Yep.
yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Good question.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Settles. Next item on the agenda is discussion of the Director of Schools position.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as a point of order, I would respectfully ask the chair to remind the entire board that this is one of the most important decisions that we're going to be making, and that we are operating under rules of order. And I believe our teachers, students, principals, and staff all deserve to hear what each of us has to say. And so to please remind us that we should be recognized by the chair before speaking, so as to not have crosstalk or overtalk anyone.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to speak first because I'm the chair, I guess, okay? And I won't, I don't know that I'm speaking for the entire board, but I think so. This has been a long process. It's been a very trying process. We have been working on this, I guess, since the end of May. And everybody on this board, I think, has been contacted by several people. We have listened to the community. We have adhered to what they're saying, they have said to us. And we have done interviews, we've done Zoom meetings, and I don't think that we could have done any more in preparation for selecting a new director. I think this board has worked very well together. We've been very congenial with each other. And at this point in time, I could not have any idea how anybody else is going to vote tonight. And I think that's true with everybody. But I do want to say, I appreciate the emails. I think I've gotten about 180 in the last, well, it first started in October, I guess. And I have tried to answer most of those. I may have missed a dozen or so. And I think other members of this board have done the same thing. And I just want everybody to know that, in my opinion, this board has worked very diligently, very hard, and take this decision as a very important decision. And no matter who this board selects as the next director, everybody is not going to be happy, and we know that. But I do think that this board, like I said, have worked hard and are doing what they feel is best for the city of Murfreesboro and our school system. Now, I will open it up if anybody else would like to have any discussion before we get into the vote process. Anybody want to speak? All right, I'll now turn it over to our staff attorney, Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board Policy 5.801, Director of Schools Recruitment and Selection, states that the board shall attempt to select a director of schools by unanimous vote, but a simple majority of the membership shall be required for the appointment of a director. Considering the policy and the number of applicants for the vacancy, I recommend that the method of voting be as follows. To narrow the field, each board member shall select their top 2 candidates by circling 2 names on their ballots and signing their ballot. Mrs. Van Cleve and I will tally the votes, and the 2 candidates with the most votes shall be put before the board for a motion to select one of the candidates and for any discussion. In the event that there is a tie for one of the 2 positions, it would be broken by the board casting another ballot to break the tie, with the lower vote receiving candidates eliminated. If necessary, this would continue until there are 2 candidates remaining.
All right, any question? Mr. Richardson?
Mr. Chairman, and thank you. I believe it is the desire of the board to have a fundamentally fair and open process, and therefore I would move that we adopt the procedure as announced by council.
All right, thank you. We have a second to that motion?
Second.
Who was it?
Ms. Goff.
Ms. Goff, thank you. Any discussion by board members? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. All right. You have the ballots in front of you. Please mark them. And Ms. Van Cleve will pick them up.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Van Cleve.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
I'll have to talk a little, don't I? While we were waiting for the vote, I just wanted to take this opportunity to, having gone through this process with you, commend the board and all the finalists that the Tennessee TSBA and the people that provided our finalists. I thought it was a remarkable process. I've had an opportunity to go through several hiring processes, fortunately not for the director's position in schools, but other positions in the city, and participating in that. I thought the participation from the community and the Zoom call was remarkable. I think there was at least 40 people in every one of those Zoom calls, and some really good questions, and the participation was great. The time, just the conversation that we had over dinner, I thought was very special, that to get to hear in a casual setting, not a formal setting, to hear the perspectives of each of the finalists. The process was very enlightening and informative for people trying to make the right decision. And I just want to commend the board for making the effort to do it, and I think the right way. And the finalists, their participation in the process, I thought they all did a wonderful job of expressing their compassion and their love for education, and particularly public education. It was a remarkable process to go through. And whatever the outcome, I know it will be in the best interest of our community, and I thank you for the effort that you put forward to do that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Yes, Ms. Van Cleve, you ready?
I'm ready. Okay, Mr. Ballard selects Trey Duke and Christopher Treadway. Roseanne Barton selects Tammy Garrett and Christopher Treadway. Butch Campbell selects Tammy Garrett and Christopher Treadway. Becky Goff selects Trey Duke and Christina Harris. Amanda Moore selects Trey Duke and Christopher Treadway. Jimmy Richardson selects Trey Duke and Christina Harris. David Settles selects Trey Duke and Kimberly Osborne.
Mr. Chair, the top two candidates are Trey Duke and Christopher Treadway.
Okay. All right, so Ms. Van Cleve, if you will give us another ballot. Is there any discussion before we vote? From any board member? Sorry, Ms. Barton?
We talked earlier about the letters and things, emails and stuff we've gotten, and I just wanted to say that Mr. Treadway, I did get some from the county, but I got several from teachers in the city that were pleased about the interview. So I just want to tell, I think when you come in as an outsider, you're obviously at a loss. People don't know you as well, and I just thought, Mr. Treadway, I wanted you to know that a lot of people watching thought you did a good job. So,
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Settles?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say that this was the most difficult thing I've ever done on school board, the hardest thing. And we have, Mr. Campbell said he got maybe 180, but I think it was way more than that. I stopped counting. I was interested that I got input from teachers. That was to be expected, but I also got input from several other stakeholders as well, and I'm sure everybody did. We all got the same, but I found it very interesting, and there was a couple of things that I was looking for in specific for that position, and I think everybody that interviewed did an exceptional job, top of the line, hit it out of the park. Everybody, it was like splitting hairs. It literally, for me, it was like splitting hairs. So after much prayerful consideration, we made our choices. And I want to say to every candidate, thank you for your interest in wanting to work with this school system. And chances are now that your faces are out there and everything, you'll probably be getting calls from other districts anyway, because the interviews were just so top notch. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Ms. Moore?
Thank you. First of all, I do just want to thank and congratulate all the finalists. I think it's a real testament to Murfreesboro City Schools the quality of the candidates that we had. The interviews are exceptional, resumes are exceptional, just the humanity of all the candidates was really exceptional. I was so proud of our internal candidates. I think they really make the district shine. They were great, and I think the quality of our external candidates reflects well on the district as well because they want to come here. It was interesting, so preparing for this, I received all those emails that we've talked about, but also directly reached out to a lot of stakeholders in the school system and in the community. And it was so interesting because you would not believe that we had all watched the same 5 interviews because there was no clear consensus. There was no clear winner. Different things landed with different people because there was something outstanding about each one. So to echo Mr. Settles, this was incredibly difficult. At any different hour over the weekend, I was probably leaning toward a different person of all 5 at any one time. So I did hear everybody I read all the emails, listened to your call, so even if, the vote doesn't end up the way you wanted, I did consider your points and appreciate you sharing those with us.
Thank you, ma'am. Ready? Yes, ma'am.
The procedure that I recommended, I know you called for a ballot, but at this point, it would be if a board member wanted to make a motion.
Make a motion to approve the procedure that Ms. Taylor has.
To approve one of the candidates.
Oh,
Well, do you want discussion on the candidates? Or?
what you're saying is, does any board member want to recommend one candidate now and take a vote on one person? Is that what you're saying?
Right, correct.
Okay.
Do we have to, or can we do
We'll
ballot?
just do the vote.
You can do the vote if you want without discussion.
I prefer to do the
Do what?
Mr. Chairman, I like to move that we go to second ballot.
Okay.
I second.
Well, And to be clear, the ballot, because we didn't know how it would turn out, the ballot has everybody's name on it, but the 2 candidates are Trey Duke and Christopher Treadway.
Okay.
My motion's still on the floor.
And we have a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And there is none. Thank you. All right.
Now, this time we can only circle one name, is that right?
That's correct. And you can't write in yourself.
I can't, oh, well, so much for that.
Thank you.
Wesley Ballard chooses Trey Duke. Roseanne Barton selects Christopher Treadway. Butch Campbell selects Christopher Treadway. Becky Goff chooses Trey Duke. Amanda Moore chooses Christopher Treadway. Jimmy Richardson chooses Trey Duke. And David Settles chooses Trey Duke.
Mr. Campbell, Trey Duke wins the majority with 4 votes.
All right. I will entertain a motion from the board to begin negotiations with Mr. Trey Duke for our next director of schools for Murfreesboro City Schools. Mr. Richardson?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to empower you to negotiate a contract with the next director, Mr. Trey Duke.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Incomplete
Thank you,
motion.
Mr. Ballard. What?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We have a motion and a second.
You're right.
Want to discuss?
I do.
All right.
I'm
discuss.
sorry. You didn't include the You didn't include the attorney in your motion. You only said Mr. Campbell.
I can have a second motion later.
So I'm good. I just want to put it out there. If we carry the motion through and it carries, only Mr. Campbell can enter negotiation.
No, sir.
But
Oh,
it has
I'm
to,
sorry.
it has to include his, because of his motion.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman, I will withdraw my motion or amend it.
Amended.
Mr. Chairman, I would amend my motion to empower yourself as well as our attorney to enter negotiations with Mr. Trey Duke.
All right, thank you. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Settles. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposition? And there is none. All right. Roll call vote, please, ma'am.
We don't need to do that, do we?
We need to have a vote on whether or not Ms. Taylor and I can negotiate a contract with Mr. Duke. Am I right, Ms. Taylor?
I thought that's what
You just did a
you just
voice.
voted for.
A vote, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in opposition? Thank you very much. Mr. Duke, congratulations.
Congratulations.
And I'm going to be like Ms. Barton, and I think other members of the board. We had some excellent candidates and some excellent applicants, and I congratulate each one of them, and I'm sure that the other four will not be very long before they'll be moving into a directorship somewhere. Thank you very much. All right, anything else to come before this board tonight? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, and have a good evening.